Eve. It is Sugar Bowl week here on Dogs Down South. I haven't seen the Dogs play football in almost a month. We're live tonight on YouTube, Facebook, and we are live on TikTok right now. So if you are hopping in, this is the Sugar Bowl preview show. I got my man Fish here. Fish, happy belated Merry Christmas. How are you, man?
Good, man. Good. Christmas went by in a flash, but I guess that's a good thing because like you said, man, haven't seen the Dogs play in like almost 3 weeks, well over 3 weeks. So I'm ready for day after tomorrow.
December 5th, man. It's been forever. Man, what a it's been a lot. Lots went on since we were on last. We took a little hiatus, obviously, for the holidays. I think everybody kind of knew. The news keeps us up with the transfer portal, but let's just be honest, man. The transfer portal's already out of control, and you name it, it's happening. But you know what, man? As Kirby would always say, we're going to keep our eyes on the prize. There's a lot of things we could talk about tonight, but we're going to talk Sugar Bowl preview. 8 p.m. New Orleans. This is a very familiar time slot, very familiar stage for us, Fish. First off, opening thoughts about this game between Georgia and Ole Miss, a rematch of the home game from about a month ago, where Georgia prevailed by double digits. What's your first inclination of this game? What are your first thoughts of this game?
Anybody but Ole Miss, I mean, it helps that Lane's gone, I guess, a little bit. There's that. He won't be on in the quarterback's ear, making little tweaks to the offense, because he can see things that other people can't, and that offense is going to run good, but I don't think it's going to be exactly what it was. And, Tulane is not a very good eye test for that because, let's face it, they really, I don't think, I have my own opinions about these Group of 5 teams. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous, a little excited, but I was nervous looking, going into Bama. And we won 28-7. So,
right.
Hopefully we'll have some good luck.
Mixed reviews for. I would say same mixed reviews for a lot of Dog fans. You have some that are looking and going, this is not the Ole Miss of the Lane Kiffin era. We beat the Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss team by double digits in Athens. So, and then some are like, I'm seeing predictions of double-digit wins for Georgia. I'm seeing, people all over that. In my opinion, I look at their other predictions and I kind of understand why they have Georgia lose in these games, this game, because I look at their other predictions and I also see them getting, Alabama wiping Indiana off the face of the earth by 14, and I'm just these are not good predictions, man. But. Let's hop right in, man. So obviously, so much drama centered around New Orleans this time last year. I remember sitting here, and there was a debate whether this game would even happen this week. Obviously, with the attacks that happened in the streets of New Orleans, as well as Kirby Smart's losing his father during this time, and so much controversy, so much going on, so much grief going on. Georgia came in with Gunnar Stockton, who at that time was the starting quarterback, but had only seen time as a backup all year. So you just looked at the cards and how they were stacked last year. And I even, Fish, went and actually was riding into work today, and I pulled up the podcast I actually went solo that time, but I pulled up the podcast from the night before the game. It was the same time, same day as last year. Everything was very surreal. And was just thinking how I didn't hear a lot of like positivity in my voice. It was more of, I wonder what we're going to get on New Year's Day night. I wonder what team is going to show up. What's the play calling going to look like? Is it going to have to be vanilla because of Gunnar Stockton? But I had all these things going through my mind, and I don't know if you would agree, but I don't have those same questions sitting here a year later at the same time as I did against Notre Dame. What about you?
Oh, yeah, dude. I mean, like, we know who Gunnar is. We didn't know what the offense was going to look like. Our defense had just been getting steamrolled, the previous couple of games. We ended up winning but those games, not the Sugar Bowl, but I think we're a lot more confident with the defense too. I think the defense is playing a lot better right now. They're clicking. We didn't have Zach Branch last year. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
didn't have Noah Thomas.
Yeah.
And Chauncey Bowens. I don't know where he was last year. He wasn't playing. Nate Frazier, couldn't do it by himself. This year he's got help. We got a little more depth in the running back room this year, which is awesome. Our wide receivers are playing a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, a lot of the same things you're saying, I was saying to myself, I'm like, man, I was riding into work today and I was like, I just listened to myself and I was like, I feel like I was concerned about, a lot of things coming into this game. And I don't know about you, but I felt like that we were going to have to play a game that was no mistakes and defense was going to have to win the game for us. And if we made too many mistakes, there was just no way we were going to overcome them. And by God, that's what happened. We made a few mistakes. I think our playbook our playbook was centered around if we could get up 7 to 10 points and just finish it out, right? But I also look back and don't know. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. I don't know if that team would have made it through with everything we were dealt with. I don't know if we'd have made it. I don't know if we had it in us for a run with what we were working with last year. And this was also a team who won the SEC championship, who beat a good Texas team. Excuse me. And so we had our ups and downs. Carson Beck had its ups and downs. But I say all that to say is I sit here and I'm going to be a little bit more on the offensive side this year. I think that, I may be giving away a lot early, but I think we're aligned to do really well in this game. I think Kirby's done some intentional things. I think if you look, I don't know if you saw it, Fish, but there was some open practices the last few days before they left for New Orleans. I don't know if you saw the clips, and there was intentional, looks at some of the early enrollees. There was intentional looks at Ethan Barbora, who's looking to return for this game, which will be a great help to the tight end room. There was, Colby Young. I mean, that's enticing right there. I mean, even as good as a body of work as our wide receiver core has been, to be able to get a guy like Colby Young back, and we don't know how much he'll play, if he plays at all, but I know that it's kind of like, I think you mentioned before we came on, Kejuan Lacey. It's one of those things where you go, we don't want to rule anything out. Ole Miss is not going to say if Kejuan Lacey's shoulder is not good enough to go. I mean, I do know that there has to be a report that is sent out that we've placed, but there's also, I don't know how this works in college football playoff or bowl weeks. I know that there's a preliminary on Monday, and then there's a Thursday that usually, depending on if schools want to be fined, have to be pretty fine-tuned in what they're right or wrong about. So, but I will tell you that I just feel better about this in all. But to speak to feeling better, I had a couple icebreaker questions as we preview the Sugar Bowl tonight. Well, going back to our 45-35 victory in Athens, when you go back to that game, what is something that you remember about that game? I don't want to use the word haunts, but what is something about that game that you remember that kind of gives you some unsettledness coming into this game in a few days?
Touchdowns on the first 5 drives. I mean, that's it, man. And Georgia, I mean, we kept up. We never were out of the game, but I don't want to give them 35 points on 5 drives, man. We can't do that this time. I don't think that's going to happen. But wow, that was something serious, dude. I was in my feelings, about drive number 3. When it looked like they were about to go in and score. And like I said, I don't think that's going to be the case this year. But man, that still haunts me a little bit. That was nice. That was a good choice of words, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. I didn't think. I mean, I thought about it, but in all honesty, like I think for me, it was how good Trinidad Chambliss looked that first half, right? So I guess they're kind of one and the same. But my tiebreaker, I guess, to kind of maybe to have a second, since you kind of hit that one on the first, which I agree with, would be just our defense's inability to. I felt like we had a very soft coverage scheme that we kind of worked with. I don't know if you remember correctly, but they actually ran some plays on us where I felt like our cornerbacks were playing 10 to 15 yards off the ball. There was no big plays. It was all, chunk plays that happened underneath that they made more out of than, they should have, in my opinion. And so what haunts me is every time I saw a quick shot to a wideout who never had a cover person on him for 15 yards. And I don't know about you, but that makes your stomach kind of curl a little bit because you're like, what some of these receivers, what they can do in the open field. We look at Zach Branch and we look at some of our weapons, and I know if you give Zach Branch the cushion that we gave Ole Miss, Zach Branch is scoring 5 times too, by himself. And so that kind of haunted me. And also, there was also a time in this game where I felt like we may lose this game. We were down, and that does keep me a little bit unsettled coming into Ole Miss. Another thing that I would say was fresh in my mind that has nothing to do with the last game is, everybody's looking at Ole Miss as this, I guess they've been labeled this Cinderella team, right? They're a team that everybody's kind of jumping on board with because they're like, hey, they look at Lane Kiffin as the bad guy, and they're hopping on this team right here as America's team going, they want to see them go win it all, kind of say shove it, right? So how much does that what does that give Ole Miss as far as a leg up in the situation?
I'm used to that, dude. Everybody wants the team that Georgia's playing to do well and play good and not necessarily win. They can't come out and say that, I guess. But, man, you remember last year going into Texas and Austin? Did you watch game day, before that show? The whole show was nothing but, Georgia fashion, raising Texas. It's weird. I'm just used to that. It seems like even Holly Rowe, in her little pregame interviews, she's just so high on whatever team we're playing, and so has barely anything good to say about us. And you know what? That's cool. I don't understand that. I don't get that. I don't know why that's the scenario, but it is what it is, and Georgia seems to thrive when it's like that. So bring it.
Yeah, no, I agree. What's up? Rich man, how are you, man? He's hopping in the chat. Said, hey, fellas, working late again. Hoping to get a little reunion with old Rich tonight. But, man, glad you hopped in the chats. What about, this is a funny question. I feel like, too, when you look at Ole Miss and this high-octane offense that they got, do you see – were we really able to see anything – against Tulane that wasn't merely just talent versus what was Tulane? Because you got to look at this as kind of being a safe, I don't call it a safe game, but an even game, right? You had John Summerall who was there, but his heart's already in Florida, right?
Yep.
And then you got a Lane Kiffin-less Ole Miss team that. So do you feel like this game was just built off of talent, just who had more talent?
Yeah, and it wasn't really a good test or barometer, to see Pete Golding's way of doing things as a head coach, what calls he'll make, because there was no crunch time. There was no gotta have it drives, there was no 2-minute drill. There was nothing. It was just a go out there, beat this team down, on to the next one type of game. It was very vanilla. I don't think Georgia can learn much from it, And I don't know what there is to learn that we don't already know, other than, what Pete would do in situation A versus situation B. But like I said, we didn't really get to see that because it was such a blowout, So
right,
that's about it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's you really couldn't get anything from that. Do I think that those teams looked as sharp as they did? Maybe when Ole Miss was playing their last 2 games and, as well as Tulane, I don't really know. They had less time on their hands than Georgia did, obviously. And that might be one thing that comes into play. Or does it? Ole Miss has seen a football a little bit quicker than Georgia has. But I think, in my opinion, Georgia did some intentional things this week. One thing that I look into in practice as I watch those videos is I think Kirby tried his best to keep practices up. What the funniest comment was is that I looked at a TikTok video. One thing it was, I forget who it was, but they mentioned, they said, they think Ethan Barbour is fine because look what he's doing to these, wide receivers and blocks, and he's only going half speed. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if that was half speed, bro. Like, that was, we're still, what team, and maybe I'm wrong, but what college football team 2 days before they hop on the plane to go to play in a playoff game is still hitting like Georgia's hitting and just going, injuries are going to happen, right? And what team's doing that, Fish?
Just a very physical team, a team that you're about to get 60 minutes of hell from.
Yeah.
They're going to come out there and they're going to bring it, and bloody Tuesday, bloody Wednesday, bloody whatever day leading up, till they hop on the plane and then they're off to New Orleans. That's good. That makes me so happy and gives me a lot of confidence. That means Kirby has done a good job keeping these boys hyped up. Which, man, if you can't get jacked going in to play a playoff game, on the road in front of the nation, because that's the only game on, so everybody's going to be watching it. Everybody. It's going to be huge. It's going to be nuts, and I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree. So when we look 2025, right? So last year, Bulldogs come in as SEC champions, 12-1. This is all just very, very, very familiar, right, Fish? So Georgia struggled with consistency on offense and defense last year. Ultimately, obviously exiting against Notre Dame last year, who went on to play for the national championship against Ohio State. So this year, what's different? So offensively, right? So Gunnar Stockton. Obviously, we have a different Gunnar Stockton than we did last year, right? We have a guy who's seen every bit of action this year, a guy who Mike Bobo trusts. He's been a true playmaker for Georgia this year. He's thrown for 23 TDs, ran for 8 more this year. That's definitely stats that were not on top of his record last year.
Yep.
And we're finally this year have leaned into a physical ground game, right? So you like to look at, we're averaging about 62 or more rushing yards per game than last season. That in itself just proves what we've done to try to accomplish the goal of stopping the run on defense, being more physical, and then running the football that we've mentioned all year. And on defense, early season concerns both years, right? Both these years, you look at these 2 years back to back, both started with early season defensive concerns, right? Third down was an issue. But the one thing that continued to be an issue for Georgia, even though the passing game, the pass defense got better, was the inability to stop the run. However, this year, we've excelled and we've gotten better at stopping the run. I think the secondary has grown up, but we've continued to get better stopping the run. And I feel like this is a defense that is getting to the point now that teams don't want to see this defense, right? So real quick, Fish, like when you look at the differences in these two teams, we talked about offense, we talked about defense. What's going to be the biggest difference, number one on offense and number one on defense? Give me one thing on each that's going to be the biggest difference in why we can kind of feel better about coming out of New Orleans this time with a victory.
I'm going to go Ellis Robinson and his growth on defense, because that takes a lot of pressure off of Dalen Everett over there. He can lock down one side. Ellis Robinson coming along, we feel a lot more confident in him, being on an island over here when we're, blitzing heavy,
Right.
Which, let's face it, if we got the ability to do it, we're going to do it, which
Right.
I think is what we're going to have to do, because they like to get that ball out of there quick, and we're going to have to be able to get to their quarterback. And I think I have a lot more confidence in our ability to blitz now that I know we can lean on our corners, especially Ellis. I keep saying his name, but his growth this season,
Right.
from start to finish has been amazing, especially coming into his own the last couple of games, man.
Yeah.
He's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Hey, welcome in on TikTok. If you're joining us, this is the weekly show here, Sugar Bowl preview. Welcome in. Tap the screen. Let us know you're there. Ask questions. I'll try to keep up I see some people entering and exiting. Fish, I agree with both of those things. Matureness for Ellis, man. I mean, this is a guy that this time last year, some people were going, does Ellis Robinson transfer, right? And then on offense, this is a team last year that goes, I mean, let's be honest. Everybody came into this game going, Georgia's inability to run the football last year. And I'm not harping on last year's team by any means. I'm using this as an example. This team is not able to run the football. Now you have a backup quarterback in there that's going to have a pretty vanilla playbook in there. How does this team score points, against the Notre Dame defense that, in my opinion, regardless of if they play in a conference or not, I think Notre Dame's defense was pretty good last year. And so when you look at both sides of the football, I keep hearing the same words, right? Maturing at the right time. I think we're getting healthy at the right time, although I do know that Gabe Harris is looking like he won't play in this game. And I do remember seeing Drew Bobo as out in this game. But when you look at that, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think matureness on defense is next man up, right? The one thing I will say is Kirby's ability to create this NIL conversation about, I've literally listened to it so many times because I'm so blown away by it. And the difference in Kirby kind of being the senior coach in the league now rather than Saban is the fact that Kirby kind of is coming at it from a young and an old aspect. I think he's in that middle ground, right, of where he's at. He's kind of a tenured coach with an old vibe, but he's still kind of reaching into what's new and around the corner is. And what he's saying is like, you got everybody out there making a decision. You got everybody out there that's telling everybody what they're going to do and where they're going to go. And what he's saying is there's not many people out there saying how they're going to go out there and get better, how they're going to use this time to get better, and how they're going to put in the work. Because no matter what, whether you're going to be on another team this time next year, or you're going to be on this team next year, or you're going to be in the NFL next year, all three of those scenarios means that you got to get better regardless. Yep. And so why don't you do something different and say, I'm going to be better. I'm announcing I'm going to get better. And I was like, man, like either the guy is well rehearsed or I just think he lives by a code, man. And like we say all the time, we're in the glory days of Georgia football, man. Appreciate Kirby Smart and the fact that, sometimes he may make a wrong call or he's human, but dude, we got one of the best in the business, if not the best in the business right now. That's one thing coming into this game that I will tell you, and I want you to chime in on. I feel better about Kirby Smart right now than last year, not only emotionally, because you've mentioned it many times to me, and I agree, is it's hard to go in there and coach a football team after losing your dad literally within 48 hours, right?
Yeah.
But also, don't you just feel like this is a coach that's now started to lean on his assistants and his staff and just be the executive of this team? Like, this is a different Kirby Smart this time around. Would you agree?
Yeah. That's that. And that was the thing I know, like with Saban too. He only hires people he can trust, and if he can't trust you, you're gone. Right. Like he ran through offensive coordinators. Like the door was highly revolving a lot, and Kirby, I think, feels like now after a couple of years with Bobo and Schumann, that he can let them run the show, that he can step back and just observe and, step in if he needs to, like, go forward on this fourth down or, whatever, do this on special teams, onside kick, whatever. He's making those executive decisions, and he doesn't have to worry about the play-by-play, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which means Schumann must be really, really, really good at his job. And it's always hard to wonder when you've got an offensive or a defensive, head coach who's doing what on that side of the ball, but, and Kirby, I trust, I it was hard. It was a little hard to say that after that Bama game, because, but he's human, like you said. And, everybody's going to make a bad call. You're not going to make the perfect call every time. Bama didn't win 10 in a row under Saban. They won 6 out of 14 or something like that,
Right. Yeah.
Which is awesome, which is nobody else can say they did that. I'm not trying to diminish that, by any means, but right. Yeah, I trust Kirby, man.
Yeah. I mean, and coming right off of Kirby, I think it would be unfair not to also go into the other two main coaches who have both been on the hot seat in the mic this week, and let's hop right in. What do you think have been the differences with Mike Bobo this year? Like, what would you give Mike Bobo's grade this year? I mean, I'm going to chime in because if I don't go on the record, because I will say this time last year I was unearthed about some things with Mike Bobo, but I will repent on Mike tonight.
Yeah.
But like, what do you think's been the biggest difference with Mike Bobo, and why do you feel better if you do, if you don't? Why do you feel better about Mike Bobo going into this game?
Because of the emotion I see when we score a touchdown. When they flip up to him, when they're talking about him, and they flip up to him after we score, and he jumps up out of his chair, and he's about to knock this dude next to, sitting down next to him over. He high-fived him so hard. He's in the game.
Right.
That like he's got emotion. He's involved. He's lasered in. He's in his bag. And that makes me feel good. I like that. I think you can't have an emotionless coach.
Right.
Like that's why I like Will Muschamp so much, and that's why I think Texas just stole a damn good defensive coordinator from us. But anyway, not to digress, but the emotion. I love his emotion this year.
Well, and I think too, like you're starting to see that defensive staff and offensive staff. You see the offensive staff a little less because they're in a booth. I do think that TV cameras and crews have done a better job at covering the offensive coaches as they respond, react, and things of that nature. But you do see the defense kind of taking on the they're kind of taking on the what do you call it, the warrior kind of status that Kirby Smart has. I mean, you kind of see that in our coaching staff, right? You see Schumann.
Oh, yeah.
When I hear Schumann talk football, I hear Kirby, right? I don't know about you, but it's hard to understand Schumann sometimes, man. He just sounds, it's just a bunch of gibberish. It's like I almost want to look at some of the Georgia players and go, can you translate that? Right? But I think they've taken on the persona of Kirby Smart on defense. But I agree with you. I think Mike Bobo is also taking on the persona of going, I don't have to be this coach that wonders if I'm good. I think Mike Bobo is a dynamic play caller. I think if you look at what's going on in the world of college football right now, you should be we'll backtrack and say this. We should be grateful we have Mike Bobo because there's so much going around of people that are wanting to hop ship and what's the next best thing for me and how can I make myself look good, and there's a lot of people that are writing their agendas, as far as the offensive play calling. But I think Mike Bobo is happy if he was the offensive coordinator for the next 20 years, Lord willing, for Georgia. I think Mike Bobo is in a spot that he's happy there again. And so once again, a tribute to Kirby Smart as to go, look, we may go through some rough patches. I mean, everybody is coachable, everybody's moldable, everybody's going through stuff. But if we can get this guy right, I know his character. I'm one of his best friends. And we haven't seen if Mike Bobo got us a 12-2 season last year, yikes, man. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is why you don't throw I don't know if I need to say this a lot. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, a whole comment there. Like, you don't just kind of go, man, we didn't win it all, or we just weren't where we should have been this year. We kind of took a long, hard look at ourselves and just said, what are we going to do to get better? I think we could say that too about Stacy Searels. I mean, look at the ability, that adding John Lilly and adding all the help on the offensive line. And this is an offensive line that was bad last year, but yet talent-wise was better. But now this is an offensive line that talent-wise, I'm not saying it's an incredibly talented line, but now this line is better talent. This is worse talent-wise and better statistically. What does that say about Stacy Searels and the ability for Smart to stick by his side? Like, what's your take on that, Fish?
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with the results, okay? And it might have taken a couple of games, because I went to the Austin Peay game and I have a bad taste in my mouth still from that end of the first half, 5 or 6 tries on, we had first and goal on the 1, and we couldn't punch it in against, Austin Peay. And I was nervous where that created a lot of worry for me. But man, the way they have grown, and you're right, like it's not about the talent, it's about, I don't know, the coaching. It's got to be, the motivation, the effort, the energy, the stamina, to go down there in the fourth quarter and do these, 7-8 minute drives to just take the will from the team we're playing. And
Yeah.
it's been great. And like, Monroe Freeling, his growth,
Yeah.
from last year Sugar Bowl to this year, SEC championship, dude, is just amazing.
Yeah.
And that's got to be coaching, and that's got to be.
Yeah. I agree. Just backtracking. I need to keep a little eye on this. So in the chats, Rich Man said our defensive backs will be the difference. They're different now. Will not give up. Yeah, no, I could agree with that. I think Rich Man's saying a little bit less of that because of the fact our DBs are. I would tend to say maybe that Ole Miss was where, not to get off topic, but maybe Ole Miss was where this defense took a little bit of a turn, for the better. I mean, you got to, right? You have to against a team like Ole Miss. We can't
Yep.
not say that Charlie Weiss Jr. in this offense is not one, if not the most potent offense balance wise. And I say balance because you're just not seeing a lot of teams line up and just run the football anymore in college football, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I agree with that. Real quick before we move on, Schumann as well. I think we could say this about there's a lot of coaches that you look past and present to. You look at the present and you look at the beginning of this year, and a lot of people were going. I mean, if you would have mentioned Glenn Schumann's name, they would have been like, we're good. We can move on from Glenn Schumann. I hope he gets his job this year,
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I kind of was mundane about that. I don't think we haven't really talked a lot about Schumann. I think we always kind of just knew and trusted Kirby. I mean, we trust Kirby a lot, but we definitely trust Kirby on the defensive side of the ball, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Kirby would be quick to maybe not get rid of a coach, but maybe be more involved in that room. But I think we mentioned it a few weeks back where I think maybe Kirby did the opposite, right? Maybe he pulled himself a little bit back from that room and allowed
Yep.
Schumann to do his job. And maybe that made the biggest difference. But what do you think? Like, what's been the growth of Glenn Schumann? Or is it growth, or is it just, does it kind of speak to the ability to, have we had players that develop? Because, and I'm gonna give you a statistic, and you're gonna guess it right, but this is a defense that has 4 true freshmen and 4 redshirt freshmen who are making an impact right now. So if you had told me there's 8 players right now with freshmen in front of their names that are making a difference on this team, and they're now one of their top 5 in run defense in the country, and improving vastly on the pass. Like, what has been the biggest difference in Glenn Schumann since from the beginning of the year to this part of the year, Fish?
Well, first of all, those boys aren't freshmen anymore. Like once you play 12 games, 13 games, I'm sorry, in the SEC, you grow up. You're promoted. You're graduated.
Right.
Those boys aren't the same people they were at the beginning of the season back in September.
Yeah.
Just look, Schumann has spent a lot of time with Kirby, and Kirby spent a lot of time with Saban. Like he followed him from LSU to the NFL, Miami, back to college. He has been with this man for a lot. Like Valdosta State Kirby and now Kirby, way different.
Right.
All the stuff you learn, and you spend that much time with somebody, you start to and see how they do things and see the success, and you want to emulate it. Plus, put your own little, spin on it. And he is now coming to his own at the right time,
Right.
And you can see it. The proof is out there because our defensive growth from game 1 to game 12 is a miracle.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think, I mean, I don't know about you, man, but like the Junkyard Dogs identity, man, has come to life the last few weeks. Like, I mean, we've always been a team that tackled well.
Yep.
So to say that so much is that when we don't tackle well, it's like so obvious. And we're probably hard on ourselves because not tackling well for this team is tackling well for other teams, you know?
Yep. Yep.
So I love to watch our team tackle because we do it well. This is a very disciplined, this is a defense that's bought in. This is a team that's bought in, right?
Yep.
It just says a lot about our defense. And then in the recent stretch, holding offenses and creating turnovers, right? That's going to be huge because when you hear the things like Gabe Harris, who is coming into his own as being a guy who is creating havoc on the outside, who's given us a little bit of a push, who's freed up some of these linebackers to run freely and rush the passer. So you got to wonder if that's going to hurt. But like you said, some of these other guys that have been waiting are going to get their opportunity, and they're not freshmen anymore, and sophomores are not, sophomores are now juniors, and so on and so forth. And so we're going to see, and I think that's, I definitely will tell you if they could go, they would go. So I think this is not one of those we're holding this out in the best interest. I don't think that's that. I just think if they could go, they would go. And as we all know with Rod Harris, turf toe is what Gabe Harris is dealing with. And I'm sorry, Roger Robinson. Turf toe has been something that's just ailed the entire country as far as when it happens, you just don't see it turning back around too quick. And so our hopes is that if we do come out on top against Ole Miss, we can get Gabe Harris back because he's going to be a key, not only in the Ole Miss game as we miss him, but moving forward. Let's look real quick before we get into some final thoughts, and we're going to pick all of our college games from the week. We'll spend a little more time on each game, but keys to victory, right? So I have a few things for Ole Miss and for Georgia both. I think I got three for each, and I'll let you tell me after that each three if you want to add or chime in. But for Georgia, I think these are three very easy things that I think if we do these things, I think it's a game that comes very easy for Georgia. But I think winning the line of scrimmage is one thing we're going to have to do. Obviously, offensive line has to hold up. Defensive line has to create havoc. I think we have to continue to stay turnover free. I think if we give more opportunities for Ole Miss to have extra possessions, especially with good field position, I think this is where they take advantage of a lot of that. And then physicality, right? Physicality on defense. We have to live up to Georgia's name, right? We got to live up to who we are, and we got to live up to what we're trying to do. I think if we can be physical and we can stay turnover free, we can win both lines of scrimmage. I don't know about you, Fish, but I think this is not an easy game, but I think it's a victory. And as we talk about playoffs, man, there's no easy victories in the playoffs. There's some games that have gotten out of hand, but they're not going to be easy by any means. What do you think? Anything you want to add, or what do you want to chime in on that with as far as keys to victory for Georgia?
I think you hit the nail on the head, man. Physicality is my main thing. We've got to go out there and punch Ole Miss in the mouth because they're going to come out and they're going to try to hit us with everything they have right off the rip. I mean, you can expect them to come out and try to put it in the end zone. They're going to try to do what they did to us the first time we played them, and we got to be ready.
Yeah,
we got to be ready. And if we go out there and make them regret stepping onto the field, man, then we got a great chance. Like we'll have a good chance, and that's what we've been doing to teams. Yeah. Especially Alabama, they can talk about injuries all they want. Those dudes, I'm sorry, make a big difference. One person can make a big difference, but that's not why we beat them 28-7. We beat them 28-7 because we were the way more physical team.
Right. Before I get into Ole Miss, I got a loaded question for you. So Charlie Weiss Jr. is headed out to LSU as soon as the clock strikes 0 on an L anywhere in this playoff. How much do you think that Charlie Weiss Jr., or for that matter, was Pete Golding, was that all a big drama series? How much do you think Lane Kiffin has spoke into this scouting report and preparedness for Georgia? Or do you think this is a total, everybody's on their own type thing? You think Ole Miss is on their own, or you think Lane Kiffin has spoken into this game?
I don't know. I want to say he's left it alone and just let what it is, be what it is. I don't think he apparently doesn't have enough love for Ole Miss to try to stick his nose in there and help them out. I don't think it has anything to do with the coaches. I think it's just, I think him and Kirby have I don't know, a better relationship than that. I think it would take some of the fairness out of the game, out of the matchup. If he did, here do this, here do that. Is he in the pocket on speed dial? Was he watching it on TV and telling this guy what he see? I don't think any of that's going on. I don't think there's any conspiracy theories going on here. I think Lane's gonna stay out of it and just sit back and enjoy a good game.
Well, apparently Lane didn't even stay for the entire LSU game, so I don't know how much he really cares about this game. Although I could be wrong, I think he'll tune in, but
Yeah.
It'll definitely be from a corner room that maybe his family doesn't even know. He might be watch it on his phone while
Yeah.
everybody else, I don't know, plays New Year's Day games. Who knows? But obviously, keys to victory for Ole Miss. The things that, and I think these things reverse and just kind of go, all right, like these are things obviously for Georgia that they have to limit, right? I think right off the bat, explosive plays. I think chunk plays, flipping the field fast, doing things that are not built around what we want to do on defense and definitely what we want to do on offense. I think we can do. I think Georgia's offense can be explosive, but I think at the end of the day, what you don't want to do in the playoff games is to push the hand of we gotta be explosive, right? It's just not what we want to do. And then time of possession. I think Ole Miss wants to limit the time that we can have the ball. Now, that doesn't really go against, that isn't how Ole Miss wants to work, but I don't know if they're up 2 touchdowns, if that's how they want to work. But I will tell you that didn't work in their favor much when Ole Miss was in Athens, because I will say you can almost go back and say that Lane Kiffin might have been a little bit too cocky, because there were times where I think he could have put the game away, and I think he continued to try to make a point, and that's what maybe got Georgia back into the game. And essentially, we're able to beat Ole Miss when Georgia played them at home. And then lots been said about Kewan Lacey, but we're just going to assume he's going to be there. But running back Kewan Lacey, if we can make them one-dimensional, it's just going to make Georgia be able to do a lot more in their secondary. And I think if you looked at us play Alabama, I think that was we knew that Alabama, we said, look, you're going to have to beat us on the ground, because Ty Simpson's not going to sit back here and throw the ball with nobody coming at him. So anything you want to add to that? Kewan Lacey, limit time of possession for Georgia. I think we need to do the opposite. I think we need to control the line of scrimmage and control the ball possession. And then obviously I think we had this plan of not, of limiting big plays to Ole Miss, but I think, I don't know. It's just like maybe we just kind of overdid it. 15-yard cushions are kind of like, that's a little bit much. Just like we don't even have any athleticism at all, right? Would you disagree with that, Fish?
Oh, I agree 100%. But I think, like we were alluding to earlier with the, growth in the secondary, I think we'll be able to change it up and we won't have to have that cushion. I think that was more of a precaution than anything else, because we didn't know what we had back there yet, 100%.
Right.
What that was game, 5 or 6, something like that. And, that's right about the time we figured ourselves out. And I think our guys on the back end especially grew up a lot that game.
Yeah.
Plus, I think we have a couple of younger guys who have come along this season, due to injury, who have had to step up and play. Who, like number 15, I can't think of his name right now. He had that pass interference call, which wasn't pass interference on that Alabama scoring drive in the SEC championship. God, I can't think of his name, but that dude is balling right now. Like he's out there. He's doing his thing, and like he wasn't there.
Right.
I don't know how much he played, if at all, that game. I don't remember seeing him.
Right.
I think we're a lot more confident and we know who we are,
right?
On the back end. And I think that helps us out a lot and goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, it's going to happen, man. It's happening 8:00, New Year's Day night, down in New Orleans. And obviously both teams have landed and are in New Orleans, have been practicing. Interesting thing. I don't know, man, like just talk about like you get this. What's the word for it? You get this like little kind of smirk from Ole Miss when they show up. There's been two kind of smirks, I call it. One has been them showing up in the New England Patriots like private jet. Like I say, heard a lot of that's because apparently Joe Judge, who's a part of the Ole Miss staff now, who I don't know, but that's like what are we doing, man? It's almost like, is Lane still there?
I know, right? Yeah.
The second one was the smirk comment made about from the Ole Miss D lineman. I forget his name. That they asked him about lining up in front of the Georgia offensive line, and a lot was said about the size of Georgia's offensive line. I'll just keep it at that. And basically, what was said is doesn't really matter. Like they're not. It was basically made of the nonchalant that they're good. They're nothing, no big deal, right? And so I don't know, man. Like, and don't get me wrong, Ole Miss has the opportunity to play with the chip on their shoulder, right? Would you agree that Ole Miss is playing with house money, right? Especially
Exactly.
because they lose. They were supposed to lose, right?
Mhm.
But I mean, man, it just doesn't do anything for the bulletin board material. And this is a Georgia team who they've been in this position before. You very rarely hear from Gunnar Stockton about his insight on how things need to be different. And he agrees that last year he felt like, one thing he said is I just know two things. Number one, I don't want to feel like I felt last year, and I always work my tail off to make sure that whatever I did to feel that way, I correct and don't feel that way again. And I was like, that wasn't. I mean, and I'm sure Gunner's like, can you not post that, man? Because he's very humble about that stuff. But that says a lot to me about Gunner because he's kind of a sleeping giant, right?
Yeah.
So, man, it's gonna be wild, but it's gonna happen, man. We're gonna pick it here in a minute, but before we do that, let's hop into all of these quarterfinal games. The first one, Fish, happening very, very close to this time. It will be rocking and rolling this time tomorrow night on New Year's Eve. Number 10, Miami is going to be playing number 2, Ohio State. Man, Cotton Bowl, right? 7:30 prime time, New Year's Eve, bringing in the new year. Fish, before we let's talk a little bit about this game. So, when you look on paper, when you look at Miami and you look at Ohio State, even matchup to you? Are there some similarities in some ways, or do you feel like Miami's just overmatched in this game?
Who knows? Because I'm still not sold on Indiana or Ohio State. I don't care who won the Heisman. I don't care what he's doing. I mean, I'm not trying to say they're not good football teams by any means or stretch of the imagination. And I watch a lot of football, and I feel like I can tell you a good team versus a not good team. But I'm just not sold on them yet. And Miami's going to come out there and try to run the ball down their throats.
Uh-huh.
And if they're not ready for that, they're going to be in trouble. And they're going to have to score because the defense ain't going to win the game for them. And I'm not worried about Beck. I think Beck's going to give you what you expect from him. I think he's going to be solid, but I don't think they're going to lean on him to win the game. I don't think Beck wins the day for them. I think it's their ground game. They need to stay behind that and stick with that and run the ball, because they've got one of the best 1-2 punches in the nation.
Yeah. What gives me hope about Miami is their defense. I mean, I think that if you can turn this into a defensive game where limited possessions, you look at Julian Sayin, you look at Carson Beck, you look at, their stature and who they are and how they're built are kind of the same, right? They remind you, their styles are very similar. They're not going to blow you away with their legs. They don't have incredible arm talent. They just have in my opinion, pretty accurate arm talent. And the defenses, that are going to give them opportunities to make possessions happen. They may flip the field every once in a while. So, I was curious if you were going to fall into that trap, because I don't view this as a 10-2 matchup, merely because of the fact that these two defenses are very, very similar. I like Ruben Bain. I like the athleticism of these linebackers on both teams. I like the athleticism of the edge rushers. The question marks for me, where it comes down to a little bit of a tiebreaker, though, is the fact that you do have Caleb Downs back there on Ohio State's team, who is going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL. And you worry about Miami on the backside because they've been tested in the ACC. And the ACC, in my opinion, if you're testing the ACC and you've not done very well and voted very well in, protecting the football in the secondary, then you may have questions, you may have concerns in a playoff game against a Big Ten team who's only lost to the number one team in the nation, Indiana, per the eye test of who they've played. So I don't know. I mean, I would give a slight advantage on defense to Ohio State, and I would give a big advantage on offense to Ohio State merely because of the fact that even though talent-wise, this line's better, in my opinion, talent-wise at Miami, Ohio State has proven time and time again that they can be consistent in the run and that big plays with these receivers have been on the board. And I do look at the secondary for Miami being a little bit more of a liability, right? But either way, I mean, at the end of the day, Vegas doesn't see this as a close game. 9.5 points is what Vegas is giving it. So I don't know, man. Like, I've been thinking about, like, I mean, do you take the under in this, man? Like, do you take Miami? Do you take the points? Like,
it's going to be I think it's going to be another low scoring affair. I think it's going to be a kind of like the A&M Miami game, Indiana, Ohio State, 13-12 or 13-10. And what was not 10-3 was the Miami A&M score?
Yeah, ugly, man. Ugly.
It's going to be a grinded out game because I don't think Ohio State's offense is built to blow folks out, because when they play stiffer competition, they don't really show up and score a lot of points.
Right.
Michigan, they didn't. I think they scored 24 and they scored 10 points against Indiana. Against the teams they were supposed to blow out, they did. They scored 35, 42, whatever points.
Right.
But it's my matchup that I'm excited about, though, it's got to be Miami O-line, Ohio State D-line. Like I said, because Miami's going to come out there and run the ball if they know what's good for them, and let Beck just sit back there and work the play action and work his magic that way. Oh, I can't believe I just said that about him. But that's
well, let me ask you this, Fish. Are you kind of like, if you're Georgia fans, like, are you rooting for Miami? I mean, I'm not going to say this. Like, I'm not one of those, well, I'd much rather play this team rather than this, but like, yes, please. If you could have drawn this up any other way, I'm going to get petty here. If you could have drawn this up any other way than to see the possibility of Georgia and having a player like Carson Beck who goes, the only way I'm going to see Georgia again is if this team gets us back to the dun-dun-dun. Where? One game out of the national championship? And guess what? This could either be Carson Beck's dream or his worst nightmare. I think it's his worst nightmare, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think you look at how Carson Beck reacted last year to the pressure of just the Georgia fan base looking at him as a person at sometimes who was playing the villain role, whereas you're throwing picks and we're losing football games and you're laughing on the sideline and you have your 7-figure NIL deal and your TikTok girlfriend. But
not anymore.
But are you like me, and are you kind of silently rooting for Miami tomorrow night?
Well, okay, so it goes a little deep in my house because my daughter has a friend in her class at school in 3rd grade who's an Ohio State fan, and she talks about her all the time, and she can't wait for us to play and beat Ohio State.
Okay.
She does not like Ohio State, but neither do I. She gets that from me because I can't stand Ohio State. Don't like Ryan Day. I don't like the fake beard he wears. It's darker one day and it's not even there the next day. Like, come on, man. Yeah. Like, I just, no respect for Ohio State whatsoever. Never been a fan of them. Never will be. I want them to lose. I don't care who beats them. If we get to see Beck again, great. If Beck gets to go out here and throws for 450 against them and wins and they look awesome, then great. Then I think our team, that's just extra motivation for us because they're going to want to bust him in the mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, saying all that, Fish, who you got tomorrow night? 7:30, Ohio State, Miami. We'll move on to play the winner of Georgia, Ole Miss in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yep.
Fiesta.
I'm gonna pick. This is gonna be my upset alert. You can not so fast me if you want to, but I'm going Miami 21-17.
Miami 21-7. Ooh, low. Man, I'm picking upset too, man. I think Miami's got something in the tank. I'm going lower though, man. I'm going Miami 17, Ohio State 14. I think that it's a little lower, but I'm with you on that. And man, we're looking at upset city, but I think can be done. I'm hopping over to TikTok right now. Dog says, "Here we come, Natty." I hear you over there. Morris Butler, how was Ohio over Georgia? Man, I mean, to answer that question really quickly, I mean, the committee was jacked up this year. It didn't really matter, I don't think, but I think the committee was just trying to be so they were trying to be so right that they were so wrong in so many avenues. And that's what we wanted, right? We wanted computers out of play, and we wanted human beings to think with their hearts. And so I think what you can count on is that what we really need to worry about is what's going to happen with G5 moving on, right? These games have been useless. They've been a struggle bus, and you want to give G5, but at this point, man, give them their own conference and let them play for another national championship and call it what you want to. I don't know what you call it, but I just haven't seen any. This is not basketball, right? Where you see that Cinderella, James Madison. Like, you're not going to see that, man. You're going up against players making seven figures, and it's how deep can you go? Roll Tide, brother. Roll Tide. I hear you. You got your hands full, man, but I can't wait to watch the game tomorrow. Speaking of that game, well, we're not going to hop into it yet. So Thursday, start the game off. New Year's Day 2026 starts out with number 5 Oregon versus number 4 Texas Tech, noon. Oregon's getting 2.5 right now. What do you think about this game, Fish, and what do you think is going to be the keys to the victory for whoever comes out on top? I know you're a big outside Oregon guy, so I know where you're leaning.
I can't believe this game's at noon. Okay, I can't believe that any playoff game is at noon.
Oregon's not playing at home, so I mean, with this being Miami, so this is actually a 12 o'clock game. But yeah, no, if this was East Coast, man, bro, this would be a 9 o'clock in the morning game. I don't think there's any way they could play this game. But yeah, I agree.
I can't believe it's a noon kick. But I think also, at least in our neck of the woods, I haven't heard much about this game. It's a very under the radar type of game, which I think is a disservice to Oregon and Texas Tech, especially Texas Tech's defense, which I think is gonna rule the day. Well, not to blow my pick, but I think they're gonna have a good game, and I think they're gonna show up. Schumann's offense or Lanning's offense is gonna have to prove that they can, take somebody's best shot. Because I think what this guy was like, people were talking about him for Heisman. What's his name? Number 4 or 14. Whatever that linebacker, I can't remember his
Texas
name.
Tech. Yeah, I don't know his name. I don't follow the other conferences too closely, but yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm excited to watch it. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting game. And like I said, it's kind of flying under the radar, but I'm not sure why, because I think it's going to be just as entertaining as the other ones.
Yeah, no, I agree. Who do you got in the game? Because I flipped a coin with this because I do find it. Texas Tech flew under the radar a lot this year. Number one, because they weren't on a lot of nationally televised games, especially in our area, right?
Yeah.
So you fought hard to see them play live. I think when you look at Texas Tech, this is a team that you can't just look at them and go, oh well, They're fourth. They were ranked higher. There's a reason by that. I mean, this year they didn't go by conference championships. They went off of rankings. So this is a team that the committee still seems is above Oregon, right? But who, with that being said, I mean, I'm surface level on it because I'm going to use that towards my pick. But who do you got in this game?
I'm leaning Oregon.
Yeah.
I'm still like teeter-tottering, as you can tell in my hesitation in answering that question. But I think experience and have been there before is going to help Oregon. I think experience is going to be a big key for them. Texas Tech looked vulnerable against BYU, and frankly, I just watched the same BYU team with maybe one or two opt-outs struggle bus against Georgia Tech, which had a lot of opt-outs, and especially the offensive coordinator not being there. And I wasn't, and that's the only. I mean, they beat BYU twice, and they did beat them bad. But there were times where I think if BYU had a better offense, they could have definitely easily scored some points. You know, because they had some drives going. They had things cooking, and then they just bombed at the end because I don't think their quarterback's very good. I know he's a freshman, but I don't think he's ready yet.
Yeah.
So I'm going to Oregon, man.
Yeah, I agree. I have Oregon, and merely because of this, I think when you look at this game, I think Texas Tech plays in the Big 12. I do think the Big 10 conference is more competitive. I think that just like the playoff committee has screwed up half of these rankings, I think that 4 and 5 mark, yes, don't get me wrong. I mean, Texas Tech, do they deserve to be there? Should Oregon have been there? I don't know. You can juggle that, but I think that 4 and 5 is a lot farther apart than 4 and 5. I think Oregon is a little bit more well coached. Although I do like, I think his name is Sonny Styles. I think his name for Texas Tech. I like that. I mean, he's a household name for high school football in the state of Texas, and he's very quickly becoming a household name in college. I mean, he's sitting where he's at, and the other Texas University is sitting at home trying to figure out how to get where they're at. So, but I like Oregon in this one. I like Dante Moore, his accuracy. The only thing that concerns me about Oregon in this game is I don't know if they'll have the ability. They've been getting out in front of teams and slowly but surely letting them peck away at that lead. And I think they just have to be more assertive in this game because Texas Tech is not a team that's going to just stop. They're not a team that's going to just allow you to run up 3-4 touchdowns and then just sit there and go, guess we lost by 3-4 touchdowns, right? So you got to be very careful with how you do this and how you play this. They're going to have to play 4 quarters. They're going to have to put 4 quarters together. And I don't know if Texas Tech, like you said, I don't know the experience of Oregon. Dan Lanning is a game breaker for me. I put him in that category of, I don't put him in the category of Kirby Smart as a coach, but I put him in that category of a well-coached team who you have to add him in as a +1 because defensively they're going to be ready. Offensively, they're going to be ready. They're going to be well prepared. They're going to tackle well. They're going to play good football. But I think he's seen this Oregon team not finish games, and you can do that against James Madison, and you can do that against some of these lower tier Big Ten teams. But when you get into this playoff, you're going to have to finish games and play 4 quarters. And that's the only thing that worries me about Oregon losing this game. But as far as physicality, talent, coaching, yeah, Oregon should win this game. Indiana, Alabama. This is the 4:00 game, Capital One. I'm so sorry, not the Capital. This is the Pasadena Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl, man, the pageantry of the Rose Bowl. Indiana's #1 team in the nation. They're getting 7 points right now on Alabama, and you got to wonder, right? Man, just seeing this number, this Alabama spread, I think it speaks volumes for what the press and Vegas thinks of Alabama right now. They're concerned at their inability to run the football. They're concerned at Ty Simpson's inability to play against good defenses because of what he's done against good defenses. But I mean, we could go on and on. We know Alabama's weaknesses. We know Indiana's strengths. But what do you think about this game? And yeah, let's go ahead and pick it, man, because I do think this is on paper. You just know what Alabama's good at and what they're not good at right now. And you, you obviously know what Indiana's good at. And there hasn't been a lot of things they're not good at this year. However, there's still questions. But who do you got in this game, Fish, and why?
No, I'm not going to say roll tide, but I want Bama to show up and show out.
Okay.
I want them to. I think they're going to show up, and the run game is crucial. But Jam Miller will be back. They'll have their tight end back. And dude, I mean, they got ran over the first quarter against Oklahoma, but then the way they came back, and took that. I mean, they took that game over.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care who you are, what you say. They took that game over and they dominated a very, very, very good defense.
Right.
And that's when you said what you said about Ty Simpson and his ability to, play well against good defenses. Well, the last data point we have, of course, to use the phrase that the committee like to say, data points, he did good. He looked good.
Right.
He struggled early, but then they turned it around. They hit some sort of switch or something. And,
Right.
50 Cent came out, and I think Alabama got more out of that than Oklahoma did.
Yeah.
I think that was
Yeah.
that was amazing because they looked more hyped than Oklahoma did, and that was supposed to turn the tide, so to speak, and it did, but I think in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So give me Alabama. They're not going to win by a touchdown. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that. They're going to win by 4. I'm going 35-31.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, for sake of my computer dying, I don't see Alabama winning this game, but I see them making it interesting. I see this game being close. I see this game being able to go either way. The difference, I'll tell you the difference if Alabama can do one thing. If they can do one thing against Indiana, they can win this game. And that is if Ryan Williams can show that he is Ryan Williams of 2024, 2025 Ryan Williams, added on to Jeremy Bernard and added on to Jam Miller, just at least encompassing 50 or 60 yards and showing they have some kind of rushing attack. If Ryan Williams can just find a game, this is a win for Alabama. Do I think he does? He would have to surprise us, because we hadn't seen it this year, right? But I think this is close. I think this is going to take a Mendoza last minute, catch versus. It's going to take a last minute, last drive type thing, but I think they win. But I think it exposes some things that could possibly be things that other coaches look at going forward against Indiana that can be a little less damaging. But for my sake, I do think score-wise, you're looking at I don't know if Alabama can score with if it gets that high. I think a 27, 28-27 type deal. Last-minute touchdown by Indiana, but I got Indiana in this one. But, man, it's going to be an exciting game. 8 o'clock, Georgia, Ole Miss, New Orleans. And for sake of the computer dying, who you got, Fish, and what score you got?
I got Georgia by 50.
Georgia by 50. Hey, man, look, here's the thing. Real quick, key to the game. You'll know how this game will go, in my opinion, after the first half. I think, and I'm not saying win or lose by the first half. I'm saying you'll know how this game will go if it will have to be grinded out towards the third and fourth quarter, or if Ole Miss is just finding it. I'm not saying they're not scoring. I'm saying if they're finding it hard to have to get very gimmicky and get very creative on how they can move the football. Usually what happens with those types of games versus Georgia is those plays run out, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think you'll know a lot in the first half of, like you said, if Georgia's not allowing anything easy and it's very hard for Ole Miss, and if Trinidad Chambers can look like he's having problems, I think it's a game. But I don't think Georgia loses this game. I usually sit here and trying to be humble, not being cocky, I'm not being humble anymore. This team is different than last year. They're in the same building. They're not having deja vu. They're a little bit pissed. They're a little bit ready to redeem themselves from the last Sugar Bowl. They don't want it to become haunting. So I think they win this game. I think we win this game by about 2 touchdowns. I put us about 14. So I got us around like 30. I got us like 35-17-ish right there, 35-21. I got to do my math right there, right? 35-21 is where I have us at. I think Rich had us at that too. So it's going to be fun, man. And I hope that we're on next week and we're talking about, we're previewing the winner of Miami and Ohio State. But Fish, man, and in terms of my computer dying and not ending on a good note, man, final thoughts for the night, 30 seconds.
Man, just pumped, excited. Let's go out there. Let's kick them in the teeth. You know, come be the more physical team. Show up, show out, move on, get ready for Miami or Ohio State.
I hear you, man. Hey, for myself, for Fish, Dog Nation, if you haven't already done so, make sure you go follow and like us on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all of the podcasting platforms, as well as Apple Podcasts. I hope everyone had a safe and Merry Christmas, and we are wishing you a Happy New Year. Stay safe. Looking forward to a Dogs victory, and hopefully to see you back here in a few days talking about the next game on the slate. For myself and Fish, you guys have a great night. And as always on Dogs Down South, go Dogs.
Go Dogs, baby.